Hello and welcome back to Beers with Buds. I'm your host, Andrew Freeman, the Cannabis Sommelier. Today I'm joined by my new bud all the way from Oakland, Joe Nuding. Thank you so much for being here.
Of course, yeah. Thanks for having me, and thanks for hosting me at dinner last night.
You're so welcome. You're actually the very first guest I've ever had that's actually been to dinner, which is so crazy. A lot of people have come on before they've done the dinner experience, but nobody's ever been able to talk about the dinner after doing it. So I'm glad you're here. Yeah,
I had an epic 420 yesterday here in Calgary.
That's awesome to hear, because you wouldn't think that somebody from California would have an epic 420 in Calgary, Alberta, Canada.
I'm telling you, I had some really great hosts.
I love it.
I had a high tea party in the morning.
Amazing.
And then an afternoon party, and then our pairings, our dinner last night. What are we calling it?
The Elevated Dining
Series.
The
Elevated Dining Series, yes. It was really great.
We have to be elusive with our marketing in Canada. If we say anything to do with cannabis or any of those terms, puts us at a huge liability to get in trouble for trafficking drugs.
Well, and it feels like everybody's worried about getting in trouble in Canada. So everybody follows the rules.
Right? We're all too polite. That's why absolutely everybody just stands in a line. If you see a line, you'll just stand in it to find out what's at the front. And I feel like that's like following the rules with cannabis right now, where everybody's paving the way in California. It's the absolute Wild West, and people just do what they want, from Prop 64 to 216 and everything in between. It was just such madness. And here everybody's like, I'll just wait and see if the rules are all right for me to play.
Well, yeah, I have people a lot of times that are listeners from Canada to my show, and they do talk about how they wish people were more out and loud and proud with their cannabis consumption here. But from what I've experienced over the last several days, it really is like everything I went to yesterday, they were all private gatherings. Mm-hmm. And there's not like a main central kind of database where you can find out all the cannabis events and happenings.
Cannabisevents.ca and Leafly/Events Canada.
Okay, well done. I didn't know that. I couldn't find anything. So
yeah, it's a little bit hidden, because there really isn't that much. The reality is that these have to be private parties, or else there's a massive legal issue. Like even what I did last night with the Elevated Dining Series is very gray area, and it's how I'm continuing my activism inside of a legal framework, because without cannabis dining regulations and nobody serving cannabis and wine and infused dining, how can anybody ever write those regulations and do their duty of care to give somebody that experience safely if nobody's doing it in the gray area? So
right, so you're doing these parties, and then you're also trying to get involved in the local government to get this stuff pushed through, or no, what are you doing?
I used to go and pigeonhole MLAs and MPs. I was really fortunate when I first got into cannabis. I was 16. I met this lady who had gone through breast cancer. She was actually going through breast cancer for a third time, which is terrible. And she was too debilitated to grow her medicine, but she had worked in the Auditor General's office, very high up in politics, mm-hmm. and was very informed and passionate about cannabis and cannabis consumption and normalizing cannabis. So she really taught me how to, well, she didn't talk, she indoctrinated me into being her lobbyist and showing what a cannabis consumer, an educated, eloquent cannabis consumer looks like, even from a young age. But at this point, I have no intention of putting that target on my back again.
Yeah.
You should tell people what you do. I forgot. We jumped right in. Give them your bio. Tell them all about Casually Baked and that whole world.
I am a cannabis lifestyle guide in the Bay Area in California, and so I teach people how to onboard into a cannabis for wellness lifestyle.
Cool.
It's either somebody who's new into cannabis, or it could be someone who's been consuming for 20 years, but they don't know what CBD is, or they don't know all these different methods of consumption. They've just been kind of an old school flower guy. Fair enough. So, yeah, I just kind of walk the walk, and I show people what that responsible cannabis consumer looks like. And I use Casually Baked, the podcast, as my platform to just be out loud and proud and help people kind of become cannabis Sherpas in their own community, like showing people how they might be able to change the culture in their town, start conversations, and
that's awesome.
Yeah, it's fun.
I love that you put in for wellness. You're a cannabis lifestyle guide for wellness, because it's amazing thinking about cannabis as a wellness product and as a medicinal product and as a recreational product. It's really transcends all of these different genres of how it can be used in day-to-day life.
Totally. And I tell people there are 3 keys to having a positive experience with cannabis: mindfulness, microdosing, and your willingness to experiment.
Okay.
And in order to do all of those things, you have to be really intentional with your use. And so for me, that's what cannabis for wellness means. Like, I'm intentionally using this plant. Maybe it might be just to have a good time at a concert.
Right.
But it very well could also be because you have social anxiety, and that's what makes you have a better time at the concert. So it's really kind of dialing down what that reason is.
That's really interesting that intent now plays into set and setting. I love the idea of intent, actually, because I say it all the time. 97% of people should consume cannabis recreationally, and there's 3% that I truly think it really helps in their day-to-day lives every single day when consuming more than just a microdose.
Well, and I'm like, where did that 97 and 3% comes from? That's just such an odd...
I'm just kind of, just through my conversations with people and seeing what, there's a medical facade everywhere that has a medical system just so people won't get in trouble with cannabis. And I think if we actually looked at the data, it's a really small group that is medicinally using it. I think there's a hard line between medicinal and a wellness product, because a lot of people now, as a recreational substance, it can be looked at as an over-the-counter wellness supplement.
Well, and that's what I just think. The word recreational is just silly because it's adult use or it's medical. Like,
right. And this is the big conversation in California: adult use. People do not say recreational; it's adult use, and that's the vocabulary that ends the stigma and perpetuates normalization.
Yeah, because recreational sounds like, I do like to get high and go to the playground and swing, but like that would be recreational consumption for me.
Totally. That's hilarious. Yeah, recreational vehicle. Am I just going to get stoned and get on my ATV? No, that's amazing. So did you try any legal cannabis since you've been here?
Oh, yeah. I found a bartender today at the restaurant and was like, when we leave, we're going to have leftovers. So we'll drop by and bring you a package. Yeah, everyone we've met, they, bringing us a couple of nugs here and there, wanting us to try different things. I got some amazing Moroccan hash.
That's awesome, which is totally illegal. Hash,
right.
edibles, everything's legal. The only thing that's legal is dried flower that comes in one of these silly containers with a duty seal.
Yeah, right. Yeah, and I have been to a dispensary, checked out...
Cannabis retail store. We can't call them dispensaries.
See, this is so silly. Yeah. So yes, all of this it's very interesting to see how the packaging is...
What a disaster.
So sterile and so wasteful.
Right, and well, even just the lack of marketing and branding, the idea that your THC symbol has to be as big as your marketing brand. You can only have one color on the entire package, and your warning label has to be a specific size of the entire label. So it really limits, and the type font it can't be below an 8 or a 6. So it's just... everybody's stuck. And how can you have brand identity when everybody has the same plain package? It seems unfair. You know what the other crazy thing is that you're not allowed to pack with nitrogen or any inert gases, so there's no way to keep cannabis fresh inside these packages.
I've seen a lot of those Boveda packets around here.
Yeah, and it's 0% humidity here.
Yeah, and I know my skin is hating me right now.
Understandably. I go anywhere else and I'm like just an oily mess. I'm like, oh, this is terrible. Take me back to Alberta.
Oh no, you can definitely tell that the weather is different, but in fact, some of the bud that I got, one of the growers that had given it to me, he was saying he was trying out a new curing method.
Okay.
And so it was still a little sticky, almost the texture that traditional tobacco that you would smoke in a pipe.
Okay.
And so he was like, leave these packets open overnight. Well, I left those along with another one that was traditionally cured.
Yeah.
And when I went to smoke that this morning, it was just crumbly.
Dry, yeah.
Yeah.
It
happened really fast. Yeah.
It's not... The first time I went to California, I was amazed. I had heard all these rappers, and then it made sense when it touched my fingers. I was like, oh, it really is the sticky, icky. Ooh-wee. And no matter what you do, if you leave your bag open overnight, sometimes you come back and your weed's too moist. And it was like, that was the nicest blessing, being able to roll blunts without a grinder. People think I'm so weird. I come to the States and I bring a grinder with me.
Oh, no. A grinder is
blasphemous.
imperative. I think it's imperative.
Okay.
Yeah. Because you got to get that even texture.
Agreed.
You get that nice airflow. You don't have to burn it as much. It kind of slow burns on its own. It's the responsible way to smoke, people.
It is the responsible way to smoke. It's much better, and you're not getting your finger oils all over it. That's always the grossest part I think about, is just covering everything in my fingers.
Well, I mean, if you take public transportation in San Francisco, you would be worried about that too. So I get it.
Rolling joints on the seat in the what's the public transportation in San Francisco called?
BART.
BART? What does that stand for?
Bay Area Rapid Transit.
Oh, Bay Area E40. It's amazing. I love it so much. I had a friend. We drove to Coachella Fest. Actually, we didn't drive. We flew this time, which is fitting since Coachella's going on right now, and Kanye West did a surprise thing today. Anyways, we flew down, and I had a huge group, and my buddies from Vancouver, who I'd met coincidentally at Coachella the year before, were like, man, we're flying into Oakland so that we can go meet this guy who just sells weed to rappers. And I'm like, what? And this is 2014, 2015. So Girl Scout cookies had just become like the big thing. It was very trendy. Not every shelf had it. And they flew into Oakland so that they could drive another 7 hours south just so they could meet this guy for Girl Scout cookies. And I love that.
Oakland is a great place to procure your cannabis.
Mm-hmm.
I like it. I mean, you can't walk around downtown Oakland without smelling bud.
I love that idea. And it's dank. It's so dank.
Yeah. Oh. But I've had some really great experiences here. Now, the stuff that's in the stores, it's pretty low dose THC that's left on the shelves, and the high CBD, low THC kind of blends. Mm-hmm. But the stuff that I got from just some other growers that I had yesterday, pretty tasty. Some giant colas. Yeah, good looking cannabis around here.
There's a lot of great cannabis. It's just still so hidden underground.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the big conversation going on, is how do you get a micro grower, this guy that's been doing it really well for 25 years, into the system so that he can have seed to sale, track and trace in a cannabis retail store. Everything here has to go through the government before it goes to our co-packer is only the government, and then it goes out. Yeah, so you have
yours has to go through a distributor too, and that's the way we are.
But there's a really cool hustle in California, because you can have these co-packing facilities that are privately owned, and the way that I understand it, it's been explained to me through the guys, is that in these co-packers they'll put a testing lab, multiple brands, and then basically, once you have this co-packing facility set up and you're registered there, you can go and buy cannabis. I don't know now with 214, is that the one that came into effect? 64 to 214 for the
No, it's Prop 215 and now Prop 64 is
right.
Yeah.
So when 64 happened, things got a little bit dicier, but for the longest time, you could just go into somebody's basement, buy all their cannabis, take it to your co-packer, test it there, and then say, yeah, it's good, put it on the market. That was co-packed at this facility, tested, tried, true cannabis.
Hell, I don't know. I mean, I do know that there are a lot of facilities, that are helping these smaller craft growers, like in Humboldt County. Cana has created a facility that it is storage for these farmers. It is, where you can, it's trimming the bud, creating the joints and all the things, and, being labeled under this Cana brand. And so, yeah, it's
a co-op.
Right. Yes. And it's seed to sale straight from that one facility. So the whole concept being that, the bud gets tested in a facility that's just like right across the road, know? So like it's all in the same facility. So it cuts out a lot of that transportation and a lot of the middlemen, and hopefully,
I didn't know Cana was a co-op actually. And it makes sense why they have so much market share now. Mm-hmm.
Well, and they've just, they really are trying to give these craft growers, these second and third generation growers who, are the OGs. They're trying to give them an opportunity to compete with these really big, massive growers that are coming in now that,
OG Kush. I want to give this one because I've never said this on the podcast. OG Kush is actually ocean grown Kush, not original gangster. Just so everybody knows.
Ocean grown.
As I have my California homegirl in here. You came in with the Humboldt Seed Co hoodie on. I was like, yeah, hopefully we get that OG line so I can drop that little knowledge nugget on everybody.
Well, I kept telling people, this woman I met yesterday, Dorianne, I said she's a Canadian OG, and this kid, Connor, at the VM was like, nobody says that here.
What? Yeah.
I was like, well, she's been a part of the cannabis scene longer than you've been alive, so I'm going to call her an OG.
He's just not homied up. He didn't grow up in South Calgary, obviously, because we're definitely stacked with OGs down here. This is where it is. You go far north or far south, OGs. Anywhere in the center, they're just hipsters.
So tell me, you're the first millennial, what should I say? You're the youngest person that I've had a deeper conversation about the culture with here.
Awesome.
Most of the people I've been talking to over the last several days are, I'm 42. They're older than me. And so I want to know what your opinion is of this Calgary culture. Because from what I understand, you came from Vancouver.
No, I'm born and raised in Calgary. I moved to Vancouver for a few months. Just
a few months. Okay.
Came right back.
Okay. All right. So then, you're born and raised. So tell me what this culture is like.
There's nothing here. Calgary is a really stale cannabis. For one, I hate cannabis culture. I don't like bongs and joints and like collections of. I don't like the idea of a sesh and everybody smoking a ton of cannabis and just that whole world that's not like nice and clean and elegant never really attracted me. So as far as the culture that I want, it doesn't really exist anywhere but in kind of Los Angeles, it seems right now. But then you're pigeonholing culture into. Yeah. You're saying it's that stoner culture. Yeah, there's stoner culture everywhere, right?
Sure.
There will forever be that market of people that spend, the 80-20 rule, the 80% or 20% of your customers spend 80% of your business.
Yeah.
And there's always that 20%, and that 20% is rooted in tradition, and a lot of the times that tradition brings the stereotypes that negatively affect what a cannabis consumer looks like, or is portrayed as. And that's one of the big reasons why I don't really agree or fit in that culture. Now, to say that it's not alive and well, I don't think it is. I used to work at Calgary's premier glass store, the next level. There's 3 stores, and they sell fine glass art. And other places, that art moves. People are purchasing it. There's not.
And we're talking about all kinds of glass pieces.
Yeah, we're talking anything from a $500 to $50,000 bong.
I get too high to use a bong like that. I would. I'd just get high, accidentally relax my hand, and drop glass on the ground.
Oh no, you don't do that when you're session $50,000 bongs.
I know exactly. Don't give it to me.
Yeah, there's been we've had some crazy sessions. So yeah, I should. It's interesting because the culture is extremely small, and the culture that I live in of the essential oils and all this really, the word heady is kind of what we all use, and it's this 1% of cannabis culture where we're only smoking oil that's extremely expensive and only available to a particular person, only if you know somebody. And that culture, again, I didn't realize I was living in that bubble, and still everybody didn't get all the cannabis that I was getting, and wasn't able to see 150 strains at a certain point. It was still, you get what you get. So it's hard. There's 2 different sides to the world, and I don't really see either of them working, because in that 1%, it's only it's the cool kids club, it seems. If in Calgary, if you're going to do a free event or a sesh or whatever, you would meet those same 50 people every single time. And then there's the OGs, the old school people, the growers that aren't really in that heady scene, and they still like to smoke joints, and they're quite traditionalists. And again, that's another scene that I'm just not absolutely comfortable in.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, I'm just kind of falling in this middle ground and trying to pave a new way where we can have informed, educated consumers, where it's a much more comfortable atmosphere. I really just want to be able to smoke cannabis with my mom and her not have it feel like anything dirty or the propaganda or the negative stereotype that cannabis has been looked at.
All right, so you're home, you're in your hometown.
Yeah.
Does your mom know that you consume? Do you consume around her?
Yeah,
So you have developed that relationship with your mom.
Well, I've been getting in trouble for a long time. Like, I got busted when I was 12 years old, and then it was 13, and then it was 14, then it was 15, then it was 16, then it was 17, then it was 18, then it was 19.
So you've been getting trouble your whole life. How old are you? You look like you're like 24.
I'm 25. It's my 26th birthday in 2 weeks on May 4th. But I've been in cannabis for a decade now, like actively as a job, working on a commercial level.
You were able to work in cannabis at as a 14-year-old?
16. I'm 25. I turned 26.
Okay, you did.
2 weeks.
Yeah, you did.
So I met my mentor,
Wow.
and she was amazing, and I was in it. I knew that this was what I wanted to do for my life. Every other job I had in between was just a building block to figure out how I can create the personal brand that normalizes cannabis in the best way, and that's why I'm the cannabis sommelier.
Yeah, I like that. When I was 16, I wanted to be the next Barbara Walters.
Respect. Barbara Walters was a talk show host. I don't even know who Barbara Walters is. I'm botching it right now.
Well, I mean, I grew up in a tiny town, as we discussed last night, and we got one channel, and it was ABC.
Okay.
And so Barbara Walters was the talk show host that did 2020. And so she would do these intimate interviews with world leaders and famous people and make them cry and make them tell her stories that they didn't necessarily want to talk about. And I'm like, man, I bet I could get people to talk like that. Like, that's what I want to do.
You're the motherfucking Barbara Walters of the podcast world.
Barbara Wawa.
Yeah, you're Joe of Casually Baked. You're the new Barbara Walters. There's going to be this girl, her mom's going to be listening. She's like, oh, yeah, what do you listen to in the car? She's like, oh, don't worry, it's just the podcast. She's like, one day I'm going to be Joe. This is journalism. This is broadcasting. So that's pretty cool. You're well on your way to being Barbara Walters right now.
Yeah, well, and it's funny because all the moms in Marin, who I help them either figure out how to get themselves away from drinking a bottle of white wine a day and, figuring out a new way to decompress from the kiddos, or how to talk to their kids about pot or whatever, they have, they've deemed me the, oh, yes.
Yeah, beer time.
They've deemed me the, Oprah of Pot.
The Jopra.
Yeah. So that's
Jopra.
been pretty fun too.
Yeah,
this is California beer.
I know. I kind of botched it. I didn't have. I was gonna go get Alberta beer because there's 39 craft breweries in Calgary, and then I was like, well, I have Lagunitas in the fridge, and I'm sure she's had this before. So,
well, to be perfectly honest, I'm a little bit of a wuss when it comes to hoppy beer. So I'll do my best.
You're in the Thunderdome now. I have a cider for you if you'd like it.
No.
You'll struggle through it. Well, I like IPAs because they're amazing for cannabis pairing.
Right. Of course, the hops, of course.
Humulene. So, for those who don't know, there's a terpene that was found in cannabis. It's called humulene. They found this terpene as they were researching cannabis and this distinct smell, and they wanted to place its genetics. And what they found had the exact same terpene profile was Humulus lupulus hops. And so that's why the terpene humulene is humulene, because it smells like beer hops. So
yeah, they're cousins.
They're cousins. They're genetic cousins. We love it. So if you have an IPA, that OG is very good. Any of those big, gassy, really pungent, aromaed, classic Northern California strains are so good with IPA. Right
on. Do you have anything for us that we need to try out?
Mm-hmm. I got lots of stuff. You're in the Thunderdome, remember? I got some crazy stuff. I wanted to bring some really cool stuff. These are all blind right now, so I don't actually know what any of the strains are, because I do blind tastings for a gentleman, and I write a book with him, which is really cool. It's still gray market stuff, but we're doing my detailed tasting notes for absolutely everything he runs this year. and it's okay. It'll be loud. And in between, different crops as well. So I'm able to see, like, if he's doing 5 crops of a specific strain, he's sending me absolutely every single one. And in every iteration, he's doing a live resin, a live rosin, a rosin, a full spectrum extract. And then I get to write these notes all blind. And because what the big thing I want to do is teach people to blind taste cannabis.
Well, let's talk about that for a minute, because I like to tell people that their relationship with wine can be very comparable to what their relationship with cannabis can be. So, exploring the terroir and
nice, you nailed the word.
Thank you. Well, I've lived in the wine country for a little bit.
Right. So,
but like really diving in before you begin and just like, what do you smell? Like, what's the first word that comes to your mind? And, we do that a lot with wine, and it's so easy to take those same skills and use them in the cannabis space. So what are some tips that you have for me and people to do that?
Well, it's really easy to pretend like you know what you're talking about. That's number one. If anybody's ever been to a wine tasting, it's great. Pick like 3 words that you're just going to anchor onto and use those so well. Like, just read one small document. I don't even know what that word's going to be for cannabis. Just remember myrcene, limonene, and beta-caryophyllene. If you can remember those 3 terpenes, you're absolutely set, and you'll sound like a pro anywhere you go.
But I don't want people to just sound like pros. I want people to know what the fuck they're talking about.
Well, and I think so the number one thing is you're never wrong. Nobody is ever wrong. Whatever you smell is what you smell, because smells are only memories. We only taste 5 things: sour, sweet, salty, bitter, and umami. And we smell millions and millions of things. And that combination of taste and smell is flavor, but we can only have flavor through memory. So everybody's memory is completely different of that moment, of that aroma. So you're never wrong. Trust what you think and say it out loud. So take your cannabis. If you have dried cannabis, I would suggest putting it in a container, locking in that container, and letting it ruminate, hang out for at least a little bit to collect those smells. Because what's happening is every time you open the jar, it's oxidizing. Just like if you leave wine open, right when you open it, it gets good. There's a moment where it's best, and then it starts falling off, and that's exactly like cannabis. So open that jar and stick it really close to your nose. Like, get in there and just love it. A deep, long sniff, and then take it away. Try and understand. If you can't understand, just keep smelling it and really just start enjoying the cannabis. And think about it on a deeper level than it just smelling like cannabis or skunkiness. Wine never made sense to me until I removed the idea of alcohol. And then it became a really complex, intricate beverage, not there to get me drunk. And that's the hardest part about cannabis, is everybody just assumes that it smells like skunk right away. Make sure you fight through that, become familiar with it, and then after you've smelled it, feel free to write notes too. Notes are probably the most important thing. Everybody should keep a cannabis journal, because we're all so different, and those smells and flavors are really what's dictating your cannabis consumption experience. THC is only like gas in a car.
And I think people a lot of times have trouble getting creative. And so sometimes having a fragrance wheel, or, one of those little kind of terpene wheels, so that you can look and see, like, woodsy, citrus, and, whatever these things are, and it just keeps dialing down and down and down. And I think something like that helps people really recognize what they're smelling.
I think people are really easily confused to think that I'm just really good at saying words out loud, and like a lot of people think I'm full of bullshit, but it's like years ago, 18 to 21, I wanted to be a rapper. That's what I did. I produced music, I released albums, I transitioned into dance music, but I was a rapper, and freestyling was my absolute favorite thing to do. So that transition of freestyling was really easy, talking about wine, talking about cannabis, as soon as I knew the words. So that's going to wine school. We can look back at my first wine tasting notes, and they're so simple. Like, I struggle to even think about raspberry, gravel, strawberry, and it's very basic. And now it's just like freestyle rapping. I can literally just go as long as I want to go before I switch my rhyme scheme or go to the next moment. And so it's all
your flavor flow.
Yeah, my flavor flow, exactly. I had to learn. People don't, with rapping especially, people don't understand, or poetry even, that all of us create rhyme schemes, and the way that we create our flow is very, very personal and unique. And that's why people have flows, and rhyme schemes are, A, B, rhymes, very simple, or A, B, B, A, whatever. And that's just like the tasting note. When I was able to break it into an analytical system, appearance, aroma, taste, overall impression, it became really easy to have my flavor flow and just...
Yeah, I like that. Repeat those 4 things again.
So it's appearance. So I invented the 100-point scale to grading cannabis, which I can't believe nobody did before me. But through the 100-point scale, you get 20 points for appearance, 40 points for the nose because the nose knows, 20 points for flavor, and then 20 points for overall impression based on your experience with cannabis.
I dig it.
And that's, they get a lot deeper inside of those, and there's a bunch of other things I could talk about, but on the basis,
keeping it simple, that I like that.
And the nose knows because those aromas, like if something's not pleasurable to you when you smell it, it's probably not going to be pleasurable to you when you taste it.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's, for somebody brand new, if they're going in shopping for cannabis, the first thing is, let's look at the THC content, look at the THC levels. If you're brand new, I know you might think you need 20% or higher of THC, but you don't. So it's like, find that middle of the road, that 9 to 15% THC, and then smell all of those strains.
The unfortunate part about here is you can't smell anything before you purchase it. They have the sample jars out, but
you could just look at those. We couldn't open them.
You can stick your nose in them, but the
bud
box
market.
It's not designed very well to actually smell, and like you experienced one day out exposed to the air, and cannabis is almost destroyed. Because there's 0% humidity, it just oxidizes.
Well, then
fast.
come visit me in Oakland.
Oh yeah, I'll be there.
Do your sniffing profiles in California, and then come back to
Well, I got to kick up backwoods somewhere, right?
Well, and I'm talking about your listeners, my listeners.
Yeah, I love it.
Go somewhere where it's legal and practice and play this game.
Yeah, Denver.
Cannabis tourism is a real thing.
Cannabis tourism is huge, and figuring out how to do cannabis tourism has been the hardest hurdle lately in in Canada. All these people have so many great ideas of activities they want to do, and it's like, okay, well, how do we actually give a cannabis-centric experience while giving the correct duty of care based on the legalities that have been presented right now? And
is there like a Canadian tourism board or the Calgary tourism board where you go and like, okay, how do we make sure people have a highly responsible experience when they visit us around cannabis? Like,
I think that may now be one of the reasons why this lady from Tourism Calgary reached out to me for a coffee meeting.
Well, good.
Did not think about that reason of why she might want to have a conversation, but that's totally the reality. I'm the only person in Calgary that's curating events like this that are extremely cannabis centric. One of the important parts for me last night was that there's cannabis in all forms, and if you don't want to consume cannabis, you're also not excluded. But to be cannabis centric and to be a cannabis pioneer and event host, we really can't forget about the cultures that do still exist. The people that want to smoke joints, the people that want to vape, the people that want to have dabs and do all of that. Everybody needs to be included, because the shift isn't just what I want or what somebody else wants or the heady guys or the OGs, but it's collectively all of us, and it's finding that middle ground.
Yeah. Well, and I think that is one of the most responsible things that anybody in this space that's really wanting to push things and to create a thriving cannabis culture here, it's like, you know what? I am responsible. I know what we should be doing. So it's like just showing up and having those coffee meetings and being that squeaky wheel and, being the person that's like, hey, I know what we should be doing. Just listen to me. Let me help you.
Hello, I'm the guy. I'm the guy.
Right. And, and sure, it's a little extra work and you're not getting paid for it, but really you will be getting paid for
One
it.
day.
You know what I mean? Yeah.
I want to be the guy. That's the plan. Be the guy who knows the things.
Oh yeah, I was on my feminist cannabis diva soapbox last night at the party talking to all the ladies.
Oh, the ladies were in it. I like that. You know what? I think that was actually the most female presence we've ever had at a dinner, which made me really happy. I begrudgingly always assume that it's going to be men and like kind of a 30-year-old dude. And it's really nice to see the transition of who is joining for the dinner, since they are a totally private kind of wink wink nod nod thing. I don't know if you got to meet Oliver last night, the cool tech chick. She sent her mom for brunch, and her mom was the coolest lady. Oh, she was so awesome. She was in that probably baby boomer-esque demographic, and she was just so excited to learn. She was an OG, 100%. Best line was like, one guy was like, yeah, I think I'd like, like a 30-40 plant grow, something of a, like, a size, but it might take a bit to take care of. She goes, yeah. Everybody looked at her like, how many plants does this lady have? Like, she's a gangster. She's just sitting here soaking in all the information from these young guys. But she was so excited to learn about rosin and all those things. We should have a dab. Here, you should smell this. This is some hash. Well, it's not it's butane hash oil. But it's white. It's clear. It's
yeah. Piney. Terpinolene.
Yeah. Alpha pinene.
All right. And what's the other option you have?
Well, let's find out.
Or is this the one that you recommend?
I don't know. They're both blind. I haven't even dug into any of these yet. Quite literally just tasting samples. That one's pretty.
This one's a little. Well, it's a little sweeter though.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I like this one. Let's do this one.
Let's have that one. I look forward to it.
Baby dab me. I like to be casually baked.
Yeah, it will be a baby dab. She's living the tagline. If everybody heard that, Casually Baked, the podcast on Spotify, Google Play,
anywhere.
iTunes.
Yeah, anywhere you listen to podcasts.
I hate it when people ask me that. Like, where can I listen to your podcast? It's like, what do you mean? I do a professional podcast. Just Google it. It's literally everywhere you can listen to a podcast.
But do you know there's still so many people that don't know how to find podcasts?
Yeah.
I mean, I have to share that information all the time.
I take people's phones out of their hands.
I've really just started saying Google it.
Google, yeah. Well, my cards, I ordered like cards before I ever started the podcast, and now my podcast isn't on my cards, and I give people the spiel. It's like, I host a YouTube channel and I have a podcast and I do this and this, and they're like, oh, where can I listen to the podcast? I'm like, just go on podcasts on your phone, and they're like, I have podcasts on my phone. But what's been surprising to me was that there's a lot of different podcast aggregators.
Yeah.
Like, just I had no idea people. Number one, when I started a podcast, I never listened to a podcast before, and I didn't think anybody actually listened to them. I thought it was just kind of a place to smell your own farts and whatever. But it's crazy.
Yeah,
people
that RSS feed, people pick it up and it goes everywhere.
Yeah, people care. People are interested. Like,
yeah, digital media is kind of a big deal right now.
It is. Did you do radio, or what made your transition into this? What did you do before? Well,
I've been in experiential marketing for over 20 years.
That's a good transition.
Yeah, so it's all been media based. So I worked for CBS Sports.
Cool.
And Infinity Radio, which is CBS Radio, doing the spot radio sales. Back when Howard Stern was part of the network.
Howard!
Yeah, and then worked for local radio in Austin, Texas. I sold KLBJ FM for 4 years. So it was like I had the sales chops, and then I put together events, and then I traveled on the PGA Tour and with the NFL and did a couple of concert tours, Beyonce and Jack Johnson. And so I kind of learned how people like to romance products. And then I have a broadcast journalism degree. So I was like, you know what? I might as well use that now.
We might as well do it. Okay, we're on for our dab. All you have to do is hold it straight up and down and just lightly suck on it. You just leave it. It's so easy. The future is great. The Puffco Peaks are...
Yeah, this is super easy. I don't have to pull it?
Nothing. 2019, smoking cannabis. Press a button. Weed. There it is.
It just kind of buzzed in my hand. What did it tell me?
It's going into sesh mode. So if you want some more, I can turn it back on for you right now. Because I'm going to keep going for probably the next minute and a half, to be super honest with you.
I figure the safest thing, if you're trying to be highly responsible, a little dab will do you. Then wait for 10 minutes, see how you feel, and then you can do some more.
Yeah, so leave it there, and it's all good. We'll just heat it back up.
That tasted really nice.
I'm glad you liked it. So this is what, I put the idea of $1,000 gram out there a while ago, and I said, I want to be the guy that sells the first $1,000 gram in Canada. People...
Shut your mouth. I hate that. No.
Why? This is an incredible product. He bought a $40,000 filter just to make it that color. These are the things that you need to do.
You should just go ahead and move on to LA.
Yeah, I'm ready. Well, my last name's...
We don't want your kind in Oakland.
Yeah, I'm here. There's a clear consumer difference, right? There's a person that wants to drink a $20 bottle of wine, and there's a person that wants to drink a $100 bottle of wine, and there's a person that wants to drink a $1,000 bottle of wine. Absolutely. And I think all those people need to be recognized and not exploited, but in some circumstances, I see a lot of $2,000, $3,000, $5,000 cannabis cigars that go out gold wrapped. Exactly,
that's my problem, because we still have people that are in jail for being the wrong color smoking cannabis.
Yeah, it sucks to be black or brown and smoke weed.
So if you're gonna spend $3,000 on something, I would why not donate that money to somebody, to...
I know, if it was a perfect world, but we have alcoholics and we have people that are alcoholics.
Yeah, no, and it's a capitalist society. Yep. My bleeding liberal heart can't take a lot of it.
I know, it's hard. Last year on my birthday, I got to drink the most expensive bottle of wine I had ever drank, and now what do I want to do? Only drink $5,000 bottles of wine. Why? Because they taste so much better. We just need to create that tiered system, and you'll be able to you can get a great bottle of wine for $30 that tastes like $100 or a $500 bottle of wine. It's all about being an informed consumer.
So tell me, on the gray market, what does this go for?
That would have been $135 gram, so that was like a $10 dab.
Okay,
but this is kind of the highest tiered product right now. Well, I guess it's not. The high tier is sitting between $100 to $140 a gram.
Okay.
But in California, 710 Labs, Cresco Labs, all those people, a gram of their live resin in these same forms from a retail outlet is around $150. And those are American dollars, so that's another 20%. You get a 20% discount on Canadian everything when you come.
Right. Another reason to vacation here.
It's like Monopoly money now.
Yeah, it's great. We've had some amazing meals.
Good. Where have you eaten? What was your favorite so far?
Well,
same me.
10-Foot Henry is my fave ski, and it was so good. Katie and I went back 2 days in a row.
That's the number 46 best restaurant in Canada?
That's it? It's on Katie's top 5 list in the world.
Well, that's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool. The last time I went there, I actually had a really bad experience. So I kind of trash talk it sometimes.
Wow. Well, we had 2 amazing experiences, and
I'm glad. I'm really happy.
Oh yeah.
And I wish I had known you were at Hotel Arts, because I would have sent you down the street. Well, you're here longer. Go to Bar Vonderfels tonight. They got number 51 best restaurant in Canada.
We have reservations at Mercado tonight.
You'll go to Bar Vonderfels after
Mercado.
It's a wine bar.
All right.
They just have, my buddies are the owners, and Psalms and Will and Thomas, amazing guys. Thomas was a guest on the podcast, and just huge bins of wine out on the counter. It's like a 26-seat restaurant, and it'll be like, what do you feel like? What flavor do you imagine when I ask you this question? And if you're like this, and it's like, okay, I'm gonna bring you this. And it's all
right. I dig it. We'll give it a shot.
It's a good place.
Yeah.
There's a reason it's in the top 100 restaurants in Canada year after year, and it's only been open for 3 years, and it was the number 3 best restaurant in Canada last year by En Route magazine. So
right on. Tomorrow we're going to Banff and Lake Louise for Earth Day. So
for Earth Day, do you have your hiking shoes?
Yeah.
Give or take.
I got my limbs.
Oh, nice. You'll fit right in. You've obviously never been to Banff. It's amazing. I was there last weekend. It's like the most. Yeah.
What's the cannabis scene there?
It's illegal because it's a national park.
All right,
so
edibles it is.
Yeah, consumption's actually illegal. You're not allowed to smoke in a national park.
Yeah, well, that's pretty standard business.
Yeah, so they banned there was a bunch of dispensaries that were supposed to open, and they're looking like they want to open them this summer. But it's just...
Yeah.
The federal government's into it. Like, I don't know why you wouldn't sell cannabis in the tourist attraction. It's literally just turning away money from the system.
Yeah. Well, maybe when they legalize some of these other forms of consumption, like the edibles and the vape pens and stuff, that may make more sense. But they don't want people burning flower in a national forest.
I guess,
because
then you could gauge what kind of cannabis consumption people were having. But at the end of the day, by not having a retail store, you're just fueling the black market.
Yeah.
Like, people are going to go somewhere on vacation no matter what, and they're going to ask for whatever they want.
They'll just buy in Calgary, and then...
I walked out of so we were at the Grizzly House. We went for fondue for my buddy's birthday, his 30th birthday last weekend. And I was like... I don't know if you've noticed, but nobody really seems to have any actual cannabis here. Like, nobody's... Well, at least in my circle, like, yesterday at 420, I'm like, who has actual weed to smoke? Everybody's like, no, like, I only have hash, and I only have oil and essential oils. I'm like, fuck. So this was just like, Banff. I go, and I'm like, Clay will definitely bring some cannabis to smoke. We'll roll a big fat backwood. He's like, no, I only brought dabs. And I'm like...
I had flour. I would have brought it.
And so we walk out of the restaurant, and I'm like, I really want to smoke a joint. Who's got a joint? And this guy's like, oi, mate, I got a joint you could roll. And I'm like, what? And he's like, yeah, how you doing? And literally just hands me a nice size nug paper. And he's like, I can only roll 2 papers. Banff is invaded by Australians. It's basically just little Australia in Alberta. Everybody just comes to drink and fuck and snowboard. And it's pretty awesome. Like, if you're going to do something in your life and you're like, yeah, mate, Banff, that's the place to go. And so right now is like the tail end of all their work visas. And so everybody's having a really good time. They have the money from working the ski hills. Everything's
We're right on time, Katie.
Yeah, for Earth Day, it's going to be an absolute party. Like, it's what a fun place to be.
All right. Well, I may or may not share stories. I don't know.
Yeah,
that's so funny.
Yeah, it's a great place. You get so many awesome pictures. Have you ever been to the Rocky Mountains, like in Colorado?
Yes.
Okay,
yeah.
so it's the same.
Same but different.
Same but different. Totally same but different. But yeah, it's cool. I wish where was it? Was it Boulder or where in Colorado? Vail, where they had like it was the tiny ski town, and they had more cannabis money come in than anywhere else, and they were able to donate the most of any city in Colorado back into their public services.
Yeah.
And it makes me think about the exact parallel and the kind of audacity to not put a cannabis retail outlet in the city.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great example. That would be a great conversation to have at that coffee meeting.
Yes, that would be with Travel
If you
Alberta.
need any coaching before you have these talks, call me. We will get you ready. This is important.
Yeah, it is important. I like doing it too. It is important, and somebody has to have the conversation, and it needs to be presented correctly.
Yeah.
Or else.
Well, and you are, good-looking kid. You have a good
gee,
head
thanks.
on your shoulders. You're well-spoken. You know your stuff. You're doing good things already. Like, you're a great poster child to push this through. I'm rooting for you.
Thank you. Thank you. Hopefully everything works out. I think once I start garnering a little bit more media attention again, well, the last time I garnered some good media attention, it put like a big X on my back. I did a article in the Globe and Mail, which is Canada's oldest national newspaper.
Okay.
And I was in the pursuit section. The cover story was Beppe Carousel is like one of the most. He is the OG wine writer in Canada. He's been writing for the Globe and Mail for like 25 years. He's badass. Like, the fact that I got an email from him, I was like, yes, like, this is so cool. And then we had a 3.5-hour conversation. Such a nice guy. Anyways, so he writes this article, and I'm the middle quote that's like, cannabis and wine are the exact same thing. There's a nice paragraph. Rogue beverage pioneers like Andrew Friedman are presenting cannabis and wine dinners under the radar all over Canada, and has even been in the United States. Literally the next day, it's like, AGLC, hey, so, what are you up to? What are you doing? What's going on with this? And I was like, oh.
Interesting. Wow.
Yeah.
It's a double-edged sword, my friend.
I want to be the post. I want to perpetuate, that how else do we end the stigma unless people are talking? So it was even funnier. I went over to my neighbor's house because they wanted to get to know us. And they're, in their late 60s, mid-late 60s. And they're like, oh, yeah, we were reading the Globe and Mail, and there was something about a cannabis sommelier or something like that. Yeah, it sounded like it was a really neat story. And I was like, that was me. And they're like, oh, no. Yeah. and they were, it was just, they were blown away. But I didn't realize how much a position like that would, perpetuate what I was trying to
elevate
say.
the conversation.
Yeah, exactly. All I'm trying to do, this is my tagline because I love your casually baked thing. I'm bringing the conversation of cannabis back to the dinner table.
There you go. I dig it.
Yeah, maybe we'll get shirts. I'm thinking up for swag, so hear me out on the swag because I want to do some kind of swag for dinner. I want to do a wine glass. I think because you have your one glass through the night as things progress through white to red, and I'd love for it to just say elevated dining series, and then just have a little wine glass and a little cannabis leaf. I'm still figuring out that branding. But would you take your wine glass home? Would that
yeah, I would.
Yeah, that would be a good. Okay,
yeah.
I think that's the swag. I'm like, what do I give? I'm not gonna give people lighters. It's not gonna be papers.
Yeah, I think that's good.
Okay.
I would do it.
Sweet.
I mean, it depends on what your budget is, because you don't want to give away shitty glasses.
No, they're not bad. They're about like $8 a glass.
Okay. I think maybe the glass for dinners, and then if you do a brunch or something.
Brunch is only gonna be on 420. There's no way I'm doing brunch again.
Okay,
that was taxing.
Yeah, that was. I mean, because I'm like, that's a lot of work.
That was a long day. Brunch 11 to 1. It was incredible food and it was so cool, but then just like the reset, wash dishes, clean the place, make sure it's prepped and ready for all the dinner guests. Chef's still working. Like, I felt the worst for him. That's a long day for him. Luckily, I'm probably the best boss ever. I don't know. I might micromanage a little too much.
Well, I think he did a good job. We had a great experience. And if you want to come and do something in Oakland, there's a lot of this stuff that happens in San Francisco and in the wine country. But I feel like Oakland gets neglected a little bit in that regard.
Everybody's
And we've got some really cool venues and I think really doing it differently instead of it being so like sophisticated and pinky out,
homie it up a little.
I don't know, it would be fun to collaborate and
love that.
Do something and let you experience my cannabis culture.
I'd love that.
And maybe there's some things that you'd like that you could bring back to Calgary. And
don't forget, I'm the backwoods smoking, rapping, Jewish Canadian cannabis sommelier over here. If there's one place I want to be, I'm an Oakland Raiders fan too. I want to be there. I like wearing a suit all the time. Don't get me wrong, but Well,
right now you have on a flowery shirt and
my Canada's already great hat.
yeah. I wasn't sure what that hat. I was like trying to like nonchalantly look around you to see if you were wearing a Trump hat or not. I was like, what the fuck?
Yeah, you're like, you were bashing this guy last night. I listened to your podcast. You fucking hate him. Clean water over the border wall. Like, this is my big pitch. Why don't we desalinify ocean water over building a border wall? That funding, I'm so fucking down for that funding to figure out how to make ocean water drinkable water. Done. Such a better problem. But I haven't heard anything about the border wall in a long time. That really kind of disappeared like a fart in the wind about 3 months ago.
Well, that's because the Mueller report is finally out. So, everything's smoke and mirrors. We just hear what we are wanted to hear. So
would you be a politician? I would be the president of the United States. If I was the U.S. guy, I'd be like, yeah, socialism.
I might be good at it, but there's no way with my record and my history that I would ever, not record like criminal record, but just like just past record.
And we had this conversation last night. It was like, have you ever bailed somebody out of jail?
Yeah.
No. I did.
No, I don't think I've ever,
Pocatello, Idaho. We won't forget you, Pocatello. Fuck you.
I love you, Uncle Frank. I didn't say that.
Yeah, well, that's right. You were the one that reminded me of the name of Pocatello. Perfect. Uncle Frank, you're a good dude. We like you. Shout out to you. I hope you listen to the podcast. I hope you listen to the podcast too. Pocatello. So I was telling a great story where everywhere we went, we were trying to buy a bong. It was like, okay, let's go to the smoke shop. Let's go. You'd figure either the gas station, the smoke shop, or a dollar store would have a pipe or a bong.
A dollar store would have a pipe or a bong? Well, not where I'm from.
Well, you're in Canada now, okay? Like, you go to the dollar store, you're going to get a pretty good pipe.
I'm like, just go to the grocery store and buy a fucking apple.
That was the funniest thing. Thinking back on the story. Oh yeah, so everybody's like, no, we don't sell that in Pocatello. Now that I'm thinking back on it, I'm like, why the fuck didn't I just get an apple? I think I ended up making like a really elaborate Gatorade bottle bong out of like a cut up can and a pen stem.
You youngins try to make things too difficult.
Well, that's why I brought the computer bong out for you to smoke.
Yeah, no, this is pretty rad. I would have one of these.
They're pretty good. One broke on a podcast once. That was pretty funny.
I just pushed this button right here.
Double tap it really quick. No, it needed to vibrate. Here, pass it here. I'll start it for you.
Okay. All right.
And it's gonna vibrate in your hand, and then it's good to go.
Okay.
Yeah, Puffco, if you want to sponsor me at any point, like, we do kind of sell advertising here. I kind of plug your product every single show. Hook your brother up. I could use like 8 more of these for the dinner series. I promise they'd be represented well.
Well, are you just talking to them on the radio, or are you reaching out to them?
I think I'll send them this clip from the radio, I'll be like, you know what? This got a lot of traction. We're in the top 100 food podcasts in Canada, and I said this on the podcast. This is a real thing. At least one would be great. I never lied to you, and the big thing with
you talking to me or Puffco now?
Both. It's a little bit of it's a double dip. That's what we're gonna call it. But a lot of people scam them for a lot of parts because it was such a not well working electronic. Mine both worked 75%.
Are you going to send them this part too?
I would. Well, I think they should know. I did a review on the interwebs for them on YouTube, and they, they should know that it's it's a pretty good product. I like the product enough that I represent it constantly. You want
to try it, Katie?
Yeah, you might.
It's just a baby. You're fine.
I'm gonna have this pen too, because pens are. This is the big talk in Canada is the pens. Everybody wants a pen.
I know, and I just want to roll my eyes because I don't care about them. I don't love the pens.
I don't either. Nobody really loves the pens.
Oh no, soccer moms really love the pens. Katie really loves the pens.
Well, because it's awesome. I was driving home today, and it was sitting in my cup holder, and I was like, oh, have a little sip, have a little sip, have another little sip. But that might be the very dangerous part of it. It's a medicinal dose for me, everybody. I have a license. And I use discretion when I drive. But I could see those soccer moms just getting blitzed on their way to practice.
Well, and for someone who's never been a flower smoker, like that gets them plenty high. Mm-hmm. But I prefer smoking or vaping flower, and so I don't get the juice off of that I do from smoking flower. Although there is a new brand that just came out called Hanu Stone. You'll have to check out.
I saw their product, but you can just put any other pod in, right? Or do they have a proprietary?
No, they have a special pod, and they're partnering with specific growers, I think, and having these different series. But
have you talked to them?
Yeah.
Oh, so you're in it. I see all these brands. Well, you're wearing the Paragon shirt, so it kind of makes sense. But these are all kind of brands that are connected through them, I think, as well. But you're right in the California cannabis scene. You're talking about all the hot and hip brands.
Oh yeah, they're my neighbors, or they're in the when.
We got to do a dinner. We got to bring all these awesome brands in because they all do marketing things, and we're gonna throw a sick party. I have some awesome ideas.
Well, and in my studio, I have this kind of loungy area up front, and I have been threatening to do these casually baked conversations and just pull in some of my friends from the industry and just have a little smoking session and just talk about whatever kind of comes up.
That's a great monthly episode to stick in, just as another piece of content to listen to. That's the one hard thing. I don't know if you listen to Gary Vaynerchuk, or any of his content models, but
I know who he is, and it's funny because anything that he always talks about, I'm like, oh yay, I'm already doing that.
Well, then that's what I like. He's reaffirming for me. He's if you're good at the hustle, then it's fuck yeah, it's a little pat on the back, You're all right.
Yeah, because he's telling everybody, you got to get into podcasting. And I'm like, all right, I'm 2 years in.
But
catch me, motherfucker.
Well, he's catching you really fast, right?
No, I'm not competing with Gary.
No, I don't mean in that sense. I mean in episode sense, because this is the one thing that he talks about is more content, because one thing.
Yeah, but you know what? And that's where I veer off, because I'm fucking take a breath and balance. For me, it's more content. No, because I have to put my arms out and say, hey people, I need a fucking life. And me giving you
but what about
really
10-minute
solid
micro episodes?
Shit.
What if you did an episode every day?
Well, no, because
that's kind of his model right now. It's pissing me off. I don't like it, but
he can afford to do that.
Yeah. Right.
I still have to hustle.
If my podcast was the full-time gig, I could probably do a podcast
So now
every
it's
day.
Let's get to these 20,000 downloads, then yes, I will totally play with that model.
Yeah.
But right now, I have to be realistic.
Well,
and so it's, okay, let me create this content, and then how can I chop that content up
into smaller
and reuse that into micro stories? That's the thing to do.
It's an interesting idea that he was talking about, because I still listen to him a lot. I really like some of the stuff he talks about, because
I like him. I like his energy. I think he's
I don't
great.
really like him as but
oh no, I do,
because
I do.
when we look at streaming culture and how streams work, I don't know if you've heard this Lil Nas X and Billy Ray Cyrus track, Old Town Road. It's gonna be
I laughed at that song. Yes.
Everybody laughs the first time, and then listen, and it's gonna be the song of the summer, and it's gonna have more streams than any other song ever. It's gonna take out Gangnam Style by a mile because it's 2 minutes long, and it's making stream money. And Gary, I heard him talking about this a year ago, but he just didn't give away all of the pieces. He was given the little tidbits, and that's why he makes 5 and 6 minute podcasts, because you can get people to re-listen to it or listen to multiples, and then you can get to 20,000 downloads so quick.
Yeah,
and I do 3.5 hour podcasts and shit. I'm amazed anybody fucking listens to me.
We're not talking that long. I have ADD.
You've got dinner, right?
Oh yeah, and I do have dinner reservations at 7:30.
Your dinner res is at 7:30, so I'm basically kicking you out in half an hour.
Okay,
max. Right. But yeah, I couldn't imagine I could imagine though banging out these 6 minute videos, because a lot of my videos on YouTube that do the best are short ones that are how-tos. Well, I can tell for anybody that's listening that wants a good tidbit of pumping data and getting those analytics, short how-tos, unboxings, reviews, absolutely get the best results.
Yeah.
Education, absolutely nothing. Showing people you opening shit, 2 minutes of that, people want to see you buy stuff. It's crazy.
I know, and that stuff makes me want to vomit. And so it's like, for me, I'm like, I'm sorry, I'm not going to like set up a photo shoot to open my mail. Like, I just can't do it. So, but I am open to, what I've started doing is splitting up the interview from the smoking session.
Right.
And so launching those as two separate pieces of content.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, because I'm like, that feels natural to me. Like, those are the things that I feel comfortable doing.
And that's two different pieces of really good content, because one can be more business oriented and one can be just
and
more
some
personal.
people don't give a shit about a smoking session, and some people
that's all they want.
Feel like they already, they already know, or they're like, I'm never going to Canada. I'm not listening to that crap. But I'll listen to people smoke and be high and talk. That's funny.
Yeah,
it feeds both those people,
because they're interesting niches. Like with Beers with Buds, I didn't realize that the theme of the show was like authenticity and entrepreneurship. What makes a good entrepreneur, and what are their points of view that's making them succeed in whatever niche they're going into.
Yeah. I mean, it's really just trying to train you to have these perspectives. Like, you don't know what you don't know. Mm-hmm. And so it doesn't matter what subject matter it is. Everybody can hear themselves and their situation and their plight as an entrepreneur in the stories that he's telling.
Totally. Oh, okay. Hardest part about doing a podcast. What's the worst part for you? Do you produce it all? Do you do like the whole shebang?
Yeah, so I have a studio in...
Your studio's sick. It's way better than my office.
I love it, but, for me, I need to have the space feel as professional and as tightened and buttoned up as I want my product to be. And so I created that environment, and I do produce it. Yeah. I do edit.
What do you use Logic?
I do use Adobe Audition.
Cool. Okay. Yes. Mm-hmm. Pro. Like if you're a real pro in the actually using audio, because I just use this to produce music. Yeah. Cool. Okay.
And then I hired an audio engineer.
Okay.
Who I then turn the file over to, and he, cleans up those ambient sounds and all the kind of, random like police car that drives by downtown Oakland or whatever,
Yeah.
He can fix that stuff. And
what are the P's called? I'm going to just keep reckoning.
Those the pop things.
There's a specific word for it.
Yeah. And I don't fucking know, but I know how to take them out, Yeah,
I got you.
Yeah.
No worries.
And so the thing for me is
plosives.
Yeah. I love being in the moment and recording and talking to people. But then whenever I'm done, I would like to just be able to send it off and let somebody else deal with it.
Disappear from it.
But when I've tried that, I get it back and I'm like, wait a minute, this doesn't, like, you pulled my story apart, or my idea doesn't sound like what I meant or whatever. Right,
because you edit yours.
Right. Well, and I only edit it if someone that I'm talking to, maybe they say something and then they're like, I totally said that bad, or I really would like to re-explain my business or whatever. And so, I'll cut some of that stuff out.
I'm ruthless. I never give anybody the chance. I screw them in the first 30 seconds. I remember I was doing one with this rapper, and I was like, I introduced him by like his old battle rap name, and he looks at me, he's like, no, he's giving me like the cutthroat, like, no, and I'm like, no, man, you're snitched out right now. I was like, that's what we're talking about. I was like, we're gonna talk about it at some point. You gotta live up to your nickname. And he's like, oh.
Well, and so I do kind of clean up the podcast piece, but the video, I just let it ride. So that's kind of like the unedited version. If you care about that, you'll watch it on YouTube.
The video is always interesting. Like I've been trying to start video. I'm probably just gonna mount a camera somewhere, but I don't really know. Like I know how to do it. 100% I know how to do it. I'm just everything I do,
You're just adding work.
Yeah, and I'm also pretty cheap. Like everything I do is just I do it on the most cost-effective scale that I can to build my business so that I can put the most amount of money in the right directions.
Okay, so lean startup is great. Cheap is not great.
Okay, I'm not cheap. I'm lean startup.
Okay,
yeah,
all right.
I like this wording.
Okay.
Right? I'm really good at talking about romancing wine and cannabis, maybe not my business and how I've built it. Lean startup. Yeah, that's good. No, anybody that wants to do a YouTube channel, you can do it on your phone.
Well, and yeah, I have the new iPhone, and it is great quality.
That portrait mode, though. Mm-hmm. Anywhere you want to go, I just feel like a supermodel every time. I'm like, just get me here. I'm like, look at the blur. You used to pay people thousands of dollars to get those shots.
I put one of our pictures on my Instagram channel this morning, @CasuallyBaked. And it turned out a little grainy, so I'll have to, once we launch this show,
we'll fix it.
We're doing this little crossover episode. So once I launch it, I'll put a crisper picture of us out.
Sweet, and I've got lots of video for you. I love the crossover episode. This is my first crossover episode. It's like I always loved the Matt Groening ones, The Simpsons and Futurama. That's what got me excited about it. Or American Dad and Family Guy. That's what I thought about when we first were like, let's do a crossover episode. I was like, yes, like cartoons.
Yeah.
I'm such a fucking nerd.
That's okay. Nerds are cool.
Now they're cool. They weren't very cool before. Like being a wine guy, if like it's interesting because there's a fine line with the pretentiousness and like a lot of the people that are in the wine world or big wine geeks. But it's cool to think that people think I'm cool because I'm a wine nerd. And like, oh, that's something I never thought anybody would learn about. And, you're like a tattooed young guy. And so I'm happy that being a nerd, cannabis, entrepreneurship, and technology are all really cool in 2019. Or I would be fucked and totally
You wouldn't
beat
have
up.
that pretty little lady downstairs?
No way. Yeah, I got so lucky. I'm still don't know how I tricked her into marrying me.
So tell me, have you been to the Wine and Weed Symposium?
No, I wanted to.
Sonoma County?
I thought about going, but then I was kind of like, oh, well, if they're not going to, like, comp me being there or, like,
Oh, see, sometimes we have to just, like, put our ego in the nightstand and lock it away.
Yeah.
And
I'm a lean startup.
I know, but you can pay for those kind of trips by flying into Oakland and us doing a dinner, and then you go to the show. Like,
straight up now, like this year, I think that's a really big reality, is I should do a dinner in Oakland, do one at one of the winery partners I've been talking to, and then be at the Wine and Weed Symposium.
Yeah,
it says the Wine and Weed Symposium. It should be cannabis.
Well, I can help connect you with some people that are both cannabis and wine people in Sonoma County, so we can.
Yeah, let's crush it.
So I think that would be important for you to go to, and just also, great introduction of you into that space.
Well, a great place to shake hands. It's interesting. I had an email from a business advisor. Business advisors are interesting people. And a lot of it was stuff that I was already doing. But one thing was like, you should be in wine and deeper in wine circles. And I was like, well, all I've done for 3 years is be in wine. Like in Calgary, I'm the cannabis wine guy. Like, everybody knows me. Outside Calgary in wine, maybe nobody knows me. Nobody knows me.
Yeah.
I'm probably just the cannabis and wine guy. I'm not I don't know. Anyways, so being at the Wine and Weed Symposium is a great place to position myself again as a really good blind taster and as a solid wine person in those groups, because I could imagine it's very wine industry focused and not so much cannabis industry focused.
I haven't been to it, but
well, it'll both be our first year, it sounds like.
Yeah, but I think it's really just talking about how do we make those worlds connect in a way that feels good to everyone, because I think wine feels a little threatened by cannabis. And so it's just one of those kind of like kumbaya, let's educate and collaborate kind of a thing.
How could wine ever be threatened? Well, I'll tell you what threatens wine a lot more than cannabis is water. Like, it takes 500 liters of water to make a liter of wine. If anything's threatening wine, it's water. Like, they shut the taps off in Johannesburg this year.
Yeah.
But they still send water to wineries with drip irrigation. But it's like, so Wine will become an extreme luxury. In cannabis, you can do hydroponically, super easy, extremely cost effective, creating your own water table. And that's the real threat.
Yeah. No, that's smart. Smart.
Yeah. We'll see if anybody's talking about that this year. Maybe I'll be the guy to give the chat about that.
There you go. All right. Well, thanks for playing. Thanks for the beer.
Yeah, you ready? This is your moment. Okay, I got to ask you a question.
Oh, okay.
There's a question I ask everybody.
All right.
You get a microphone all the time, but if you get a microphone on my stage and you wanted to tell the world anything and they're all listening, what would you tell the world?
Well, selfishly right now, I will tell the world about my business.
Money. Nailed it.
Yeah. But no, if you are curious about cannabis, I am in the business of Cana Confidence. And so if you haven't subscribed to Casually Baked the podcast, I would highly encourage it.
I would as well.
And also, if you are somebody who is kind of struggling with something in your personal life surrounding cannabis, I have an advice show called Love, Mary Jane.
Ooh.
And so it is all about relationships in the modern cannabis culture, whether those are personal, professional, within the community. And so you can go to lovemaryjane.net and you can ask me any of your cannabis-infused relationship questions, and I answer them on the show. It's a lot of fun.
That's cool. Okay, I gotta ask, have you had any crazy ones? Like, is there any like really good ones that were like stuck out so far?
Well, I mean, so you can find shows on the yin and yang of dating somebody who's sober and you're somebody who consumes.
Crazy. Would never work in my world. Okay.
There is a show on switch hitting, somebody who's considering changing teams in their 30s.
Oh, like, becoming a homosexual?
Yeah, being like, I've been dating dudes and this isn't working out for me. Am I crazy to want to date women? So that was a fun one. We had a good time answering that one. So I partner with different people who are experts in that field or whatever.
Everybody, listen in. I want to know the answer to what your advice was. I probably would have just said, go for it and see if you're into it. I don't know. That's an interesting one.
Yeah.
Everybody go check it out.
And there was one about people that are, kids are now out of the house. They're starting to experiment with cannabis again, and like, how can we use cannabis in the bedroom to have a better experience? And so, yeah, we talk about all kinds of fun stuff. It's not something you listen to with your kids in the car.
Yeah, of course not. Well, we don't have kids, so that's okay. What was that one called again? Love, Mary Jane. And what's your Instagram? That is at LoveMJPod. Oh, nice. And then Casually Baked, exactly like it's... Yeah, at Casually Baked. Do you have a website for that one too? That is casuallybaked.com. You locked it all down. You're Casually Baked. I'm Casually Baked on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and on the World Wide Web. Okay, well, we're casually... Thank you for getting Casually Baked with me. Thanks for hanging out. Cheers and safe travels. Yeah, welcome to Canada. Cheers. Bye-bye.